Um, so last we left off, got the root control, spine 1, spine 2, spine 3, shoulder, elbow, wrist. So just the upper body controls. I created jaw control for this jaw joint here. So I'm going to create a jaw control for that. So for this, I could just use like an EP curve with a 1 Bezier and create this curved line. But I'm just going to use in this case, a NURBS circle. And I'm just going to modify it. So it's sort of that'll be good. Just wrap around the chin and jaw area. So then I'm going to take this and snap it over here. Okay, and rotate. That'll work just fine for the jaw control. Maybe you want to bring it down just a little bit, make it a little bit easier to select while animating. Okay, that's good. And now just snap it up to the joint. Okay. So what we've got here now is I'm going to modify freeze transformations and create this NURBS circle to be a jaw control. So now I've got the jaw control, and now we're ready to begin starting to connect the attributes to the rig. Let's first start by parenting these correctly. So I'm going to parent in this hierarchy the finger control. I usually actually parent that to the wrist, and in this case it won't matter because I'm not going to go over. I'll make it an optional feature, so the IK-FK switch. But for this, I'm going to do just an FK upper body with an IK lower body. So I'm shift selecting each part, and now they're going to be parented to one another. Some people like to connect the shoulder control to the clav. Some people don't. Totally optional. I'm not going to do it this time. Oh, wait. Okay. Just making sure I parented it to the correct one. And we're just going to run through this chain of parenting here. So just do the same for this. Shift, select the wrist, shift select the elbow, and just run through this entire chain of parenting. And then I'm going to parent this to the chest control, and then the clav will be parented to the chest control as well. So when I select my chest controller, you'll see everything highlights. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do a parent system through the neck to the chest. The jaw, see this, the jaw controller could go to the neck, but it could also go to this one. So I'm going to go to the head because then this head will go to the neck. Okay. And that should take care of the upper body. Everything but the eyes. I'm going to leave the eyes not parented to the head. So now, select the chest control, shift select down that chain, parenting, Okay, so now everything up to this point should be like this. So when I move my root around, it'll move all my controls around. So now the next thing is I want to take my root control and parent it to my root joint and parent it to the root control. So now what you're going to see happen is my entire chain with my rig and my joints are going to begin to animate straight from that one. Now this is the only joint that you parent to a controller, only one. The rest we're going to do something called a orient constraint. So select the controller and then shift select the joint. Under rigging tab, go to constrain and orient, and let's just double check the settings. Make sure you click maintain offset and constrain all and hit add, and that should do that. Go ahead and do that for the spine controls. So select the spine control, shift select the joint controller, constrain, orient. So now when you move from the spine control, you'll see you get that movement, and the whole rig should be, let me just make sure I get the whole thing, and it's all animating, or yeah, moving together. So now I've got that. Alright, let's go ahead and take this controller and constrain, orient. Take this controller, shift select, constrain, orient. Same thing with these, and this is why it's so important, because we're going to be, the orient constraint only controls the rotation. And for this, we need the pivot point to be snapped to the corresponding joint for that reason, so it rotates that joint at that point. And now let's go constrain, orient, and again. And if you don't know this shortcut already, G is the last tool you'll use, so constrain orient will work just fine if you just continue to hit G, as long as you set the settings correctly the first time you do it. And now we'll run through this side. Okay, and select the neck. And this was at one time when I was making it. Should I have a controller here? Should I have one here? I decided to just put one at the center without having these have any controllers. I technically could set a controller there, but I think it's just too much on the neck to have too many controllers in one area. That will more or less be doing the same thing once you add the weights to it. And we're doing this for the neck, the head as well, and even the jaw. But the jaw is a little bit trickier, so for now we're going to do that because we can control the rotation of it with this, even though it doesn't look like it, it does. Okay, but yeah, so for now we'll come back to the jaw control because we're going to need it to do more than that, to open and close the mouth and so forth. But for the rest of it, we're pretty much ready to go. Just double check all your controllers, move them around, make sure he's all good to go. And there's one last controller we need to create, and that is the global control. So I'm going to create this global control. It's just a big circle, or whatever you want it to be, because this is the time that we need to check to make sure that our rig will be scaling correctly, and that's extremely important. So if you were to import it into a new scene or reference it into a new scene, that it's actually able to be scaled to fit the scene. You don't want him to be the size of a Matchbox car where the rest of your scene is ginormous, filling up all this area. So make sure that you get this global control in. And the last thing is we're going to parent our foot controls to the global control. And now we're also going to parent the root control to this controller and the eye controller as well. The eyes will be parented to here, each individual eye, and then the eye controller will be parented to the joint, or the one thing I should have made sure that I did before I parented all those was freeze transformations. So given that minor mistake, this is a great point to go over. Well, how do I unparent things? Shift P will unparent any selections you made. So I just unparented everything really easily. Shift P. Just make sure. And you want to parent everything before. Sometimes you will be able to parent after, but that's not the correct way, because take this eye controller for example. I'm going to shift select here. Now that I've parented it to this, when I go back here, it's retained some of those attributes and it changes some of the settings in here, which we do not want because this is set down and the scale is slightly off. So when you look at it here, this is slightly off, and so are the scales. So however it calculates that information, it changes the numbers in our channel box. So we want to make sure that we avoid that. So again, Shift P, and now that's not parented anymore, and it does not retain any of those attributes after that, because by default now, since we froze transformations on this, all of these have been cleared out from before, but parenting it to this kind of pulls that information from there, and then we'd have to freeze transformations again, which is actually the incorrect way to do it. So we want to make sure that we do it, freeze everything before we start parenting everything. So modify freeze transformations, and we should be good to go. Okay, so now let's do that one more time, because our global control is now frozen. Parent that, parent each foot. And that should do it. And then the eye controllers. So now that we've got our rig like this, let's go ahead and test the scaling. And it should scale like this. And that's really important that it scales proportionately. If it does not, you did something wrong and you need to fix it, because otherwise it's almost useless if you're going to try to use it in other scenes. So there's that. Now we've got, just double check to make sure that all of your controllers are working, and they are. They should be. Okay. Alright, wonderful. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just go ahead and save this out, and next time we'll go over the finger controls and how to connect the fingers to finger joints to the finger controls, pretty much the same way we did the feet, and then see how that goes, and then we'll connect the eyes and the jaw another time, and I'll save the facial animation for last on how we'll set that up. So that's all we got for the connecting the upper body controls. Thanks for watching.